Hi everyone, in this quick tutorial, I'll show you how to set up PostgreSQL using Docker. And instead of just pulling an image from Docker Hub, we'll build it ourselves using a Dockerfile so the image is custom. Traditionally, you'd install PostgreSQL directly on your machine, which is fine and gets you running quickly, but it can get messy. You have to manage versions, fix dependencies, and clean up any leftover data if you ever have to uninstall it. With Docker, everything is inside a container, an isolated container. That means there's no conflict with other databases or software, easy to start fresh or even remove when you're done, and it works exactly the same on every machine. In short, Docker makes your setup portable, consistent, and disposable. Alright, let's get started. First off, I already have Docker installed. I won't go over that. I'll drop a link on the description below for installing Docker on a Mac or if you're in a Windows. And once you get that installed, you should have the Docker desktop running. So first thing I would do is set up the project. So I'm using Visual Studio Code as my editor. You could use any editor that you like. So on my desktop, I'm just going to create a new folder. Just going to call it Postgres Docker. And I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code. Yes, trust all. And first thing you want to do here is create a Docker file. So create a Docker file, no extension, just plain Docker file. And first off, you want to start with an image. So to get an idea of what image to use, you could go back to Docker Hub here and search for Postgres, which I already have here. And you would see a bunch of results here. So the first one is the official Postgres image. So you could get that. And these are the supported tags that you could use. You could just use Postgres Trixie to get the latest. But I want to get just the Alpine version because it's smaller. So on your Docker file, you simply need to specify. So here I can say from, and GitHub Copilot suggesting me the latest. I'm going to accept that, but quickly swap it out for Alpine. And then you need to set up the environment. So for environments, you need to set up the Postgres user, the password, and the DB. So say Postgres user underscore user. I'm gonna give it my name as the user, and Copilot is saying this. All right, so let's accept that password, and the DB is Paolo Argelio underscore DB. Cool. If you want, you could also create an init file or an SQL script that would run every time you run this image. So let's do that. Let's create a file. I'm going to call this init db SQL. And inside my init db SQL, I'm just going to create a contact table and an account table. So I'm just going to copy the script here to make it faster. So here I have a table called account with 2 columns on it, and a table called contact, 2 columns on it, and then save. And on my Docker file here, I could initialize that by calling copy. And there you go. So I don't need this, I just need this. And it's going to copy that init db SQL into this directory in my Docker container. Cool. So that's it. That's all you need. So I'm going to open up the terminal here on Visual Studio Code and simply type in docker build, then T, and the name of the image. So I'm going to call this Postgres DB and period to build on this directory. And it's going to start building, reading your file, and then build that image. So it's now build that image. If I do docker image ls, you would see I have this Postgres DB here. So that's the latest and built 10 seconds ago. Now I could also go to Docker desktop here and go under images, and I should see that image listed here. As you can see, it's only 388 MB. Now, I could go back to the terminal there or go use the terminal here, which is basically the same. So we're going to use the terminal here on the Docker desktop, and we're going to run this container and say docker run d -- name and the name of the container. So I'm going to call it sf postgres db. Run on the port 5432. So we're exposing the port 5432, and then the name of the image. So name of my image is postgres db, and hit enter, and that's gonna create this container. So if I go to the container here, you would see we now have this container sf postgres db, and it's now started. Now if you want to go inside this container, you could go say docker exec interactive, and then paste in that string and type in sh. Now I'm inside this container. Inside this container, I could do an ls, and I could inspect this directory. Remember, we copy the file in that directory, which is the initdb SQL. And now let's connect to the MySQL. So I'm gonna say psql u, and then the user. So my user, the one I specified on the Dockerfile, and then let's type in the DB. So the DB is Paulo Arquilio _ DB as well. And now I'm inside Postgres SQL. If I say /L, you would see I have this. Let's try to connect to this database. I'm just going to copy that and paste. Now I'm now connected to that database, and I say DTT, and you can see I have 2 tables on that database. Pretty cool. So it's now running. Now, what if I want to connect an external client to it? So let's say I have PGAdmin running here, PGAdmin 4. If you don't have PGAdmin, go ahead and install it. I'll also drop a link in the description on how to install it. And from here, I'm just going to add a server. So I'm going to say register server. I'm just going to call this localhost. And then under connection here, say localhost and the username. So the user that I use is Paulo Arquilio, and then type in the password. So I think the password, I'm just going to copy the password so I don't make a mistake. Password is this one. Save. And let's see if it's connected. Yep, it's connected. Now if I go to the schemas and I go to the tables here, you would see I could see those 2 accounts, and I could do a query tool and I could execute some commands here. So I'm gonna insert some dummy accounts and dummy contacts, and then just run this and executed successfully. Now if I go to this table and say view all rows, you would see I have data now on this table. Similarly to the contact table, I should be able to say all rows and see those data that we just inserted. So that's it. Quick and easy way to install Postgres on a Docker image, and then I'm using Postgres client to connect to it and query the database. Hope you like this video. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Cheers. Bye for now.